Hi guys, it's Lisa from Paint and Create. Today I'm on to the next phase of creating a brand new bathroom in our basement. I am using lime plaster, which I think a lot of people are very interested in lately because it's been hitting all the design trends. It's true lime plaster, has real lime in it. It is easy to use and it creates a subtle matte finish, a little bit of sheen, but very earthy looking. It has a little bit of undulation to the color when you apply 2 coats, but it's super subtle. It has a lot of pros to using it, and the main reason I'm using it, not just for the looks, because I love how it looks, but in this bathroom I'm going to have a soaker tub. And the best part about lime plaster is it allows the absorption of moisture and it doesn't allow mildew to form. And what it does is it slowly absorbs the moisture and then slowly diffuses it back out into the air over time. So it's breathable. It can be sealed in high traffic areas, but in this case I'm not going to seal it because I want that absorption and diffusion effect with the plaster. It's very hard and very durable once applied, but yet it's incredibly flexible. So if you have a space that has flex cracks or anything like that, a place where you would turn on and off the heat, or the heat changes throughout the year, this is a great plaster to use because it is so flexible as well as durable and beautiful. So I'm going to put it in time lapse because it's kind of boring to watch me trout plaster, but I'm going to do one wall for you, and then when the bathroom walls are done I'll show you how it looks. So enjoy. Okay, so this is the lime plaster by Novacolor. It's called Marmorino KS. It's a rather matte plaster. I did have it tinted in Minneapolis by the Plaster Center to the color Benjamin Moore White Dove, and anytime it's tinted, and I guess I would recommend even if it's untinted to paddle mix it, but especially when it's tinted because they use their shaker machines to shake that tint in, and sometimes it can not have a good uniformity, so that could show up on your walls. So I'm gonna paddle mix it and then start applying it. I have a drill, paddle mixer. And then all you have to do with your paddle mixer is stick it in a bucket of water and turn it on and it'll clean it off. Here's a quick few pictures of the progression of the bathroom project. I put up all bathroom rated drywall, taped and mudded the seams and drywall screws, sanded them, primed it with a regular drywall primer, and then went on to use the Texture Line Shark Tooth Primer. Here's a picture of the Shark Tooth Primer and how the walls looked after I applied that. I wanted to show you how I did one entire wall, but I didn't want to bore you to death and have you fall asleep during this video, so I sped it up so you can see the direction that I work in, going dry to wet. Usually right to left, basically, because I'm right-handed. What you can't see because I'm sped up is every few minutes when you're working with a plaster like this, you need to clean off your trowel with a blade to keep it very clean. As I'm watching this, I wish I was really this fast in real life, but I think I sped it up 3 or 4 times real time. So it did take a little bit longer, but it's definitely a doable process for a DIYer. Here's a few still pics of the wall as I was working. You can see the definite color variation as it dries all plasters dry lighter. So it's going to dry lighter and more matte, but there will still be a very slight variation depending on how you burnish it. I didn't want a lot of variation, but the last few photos with the lighting, it's hard to see, but there is some variation, and it's very warm, very inviting, very textural. When you touch it, it feels warm. It's just another added layer of something for your senses. The texture of it is just unsurpassed, and you can't get it by paint alone. Right now I'm panning around showing you pretty much the finished product of the bathroom. I did this stenciled plastered wall, which I did another YouTube video for, you can check out. I built the tub surround. I did the micro cement top of the tub that's waterproof, laid the floor, put in the hardware, painted and applied all the trim, and created the artwork. So besides showing you on the wall how I did this, I want to do a sample board also so you can see up close and personal. In the wall finish, I sped up a little bit so you can't really see how I'm troweling. So if this is drywall, which was my case, I did a drywall primer first, and then I used what I'm going to show you next, which is a shark tooth primer. If it's a painted wall, you could go right over the paint with this primer. So what I used is Texture Line shark tooth primer, and for just about any plaster, but especially lime plaster, it's going to create a tooth, and it's very like a micro grit to it, and it's going to allow you to trowel that plaster, and it's going to grip to those little fine granules in this primer. So I'm just kind of going to do this. I'm going to dip right into my gallon just so I don't make a big mess today. Again, if this is drywall, you would use a drywall primer first. If it's paint, you can go right over with this. I am using Novacolor Marmorino KS lime plaster for this project. They do make a specific, it's called quartz primer, and it's basically the same thing as this. So if you like to stay within a product line, that's actually the recommended primer for the lime plaster. The sample is just an old piece of MDF that I'm using to show you. So in your room, whatever you're going to plaster, you want to put a nice even coat of this shark tooth. I'm going a little heavy because this is MDF, and it's going to soak it up a little more. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll show you how to apply the Marmorino KS lime plaster. The shark tooth primer is dry, so I'm ready to apply the first coat of the Marmorino KS lime plaster by Novacolor. Before I get started, I want to talk about trowels for just a second. This is usually my go-to trowel. It's called a Japanese trowel. I use it for most plasters, and especially metallic plasters. It's extremely flexible. It goes into corners really well, and you can get things really tight with it. However, it's not good for heavy plasters. So for a lime plaster, you want a really sturdy rectangular trowel like this. I like ones with a little bit of a curved edge. I want a nice heavy gauge to it because the plaster is very heavy, and different than most plasters that you've worked with. In fact, it's so heavy I don't even usually use a hawk to carry my plaster on. I use something a little smaller because it gets really heavy if you're doing a big project. So you want to start with a good amount on your trowel and start pushing it on. It's a little different than most plasters because you're really pushing it on. You want to work from your dry area into your wet area. It's okay if your first coat, if you, there's a couple different methods. You can create little voids like this and purposely leave them. It's going to create a little more interest, even though it's a matte plaster. There is going to be a little bit of movement in it, although not much. And depending on what you want for your final look, your second coat can either be really smooth and tight, or you can kind of skip trowel over it to create more of a rustic texture. Okay, so that's my first coat. I'll let it dry and I'll come back and show you the second coat. Okay, we're back for the second coat. I'm going to do something a little different so you can actually see what I'm doing. I realized that the whiteboard is really hard to see. White plaster over a white primer, and then another coat of white plaster is kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So I tinted my second coat to a dark gray so you can see what I'm doing. You normally wouldn't put such a different tone of color on top of a base. You could do two similar tones, like two different medium grays to create more movement, but you wouldn't do what I'm going to do now. I'm just doing it to show you. I divided my board also into 3 segments to show you some different techniques. I'm going to stencil the plaster on one. I'm going to do a smooth technique on the middle, and then a little more textured technique on the third. What I did in my bathroom with this project, I did more of a smooth application, so very little movement. And again, I did not seal it because I want the ability for the moisture in that room to absorb and release. So let's get going. So I'm going to butter my trowel with this dark gray that I made. I actually really like this color. I might have to do something cool with it. And it's probably gonna bleed a little bit, which is okay because I'm really into that imperfect look right now. I'm seeing it everywhere. Downtown buildings, art galleries, kind of a lost and found look. Out of all the Novacolor products, this one has been around, or I should say this one has probably the best price point. It's very affordable for an Italian-made plaster. So if you want to start somewhere, I would suggest starting with this. It's a very fine grit, line plaster called Marmorino KS. Now on a wall you would be a little more organic, but I'm kind of forced to be doing it a little linear because of my taped edges. Well, the first coat was kind of heavy and difficult to apply. The second coat goes on like butter. It's just beautiful to work with. And you can just keep kind of compressing it and working with it. Okay, so that's my smooth sample. We'll move on to the final, a little more textured. Now, if you're doing the same color, you could obviously leave those gaps and it would be a lot easier to get the textured look. Okay, so that last technique was kind of just a little bit of skip troweling, a little bit of popping, and then burnishing it down. Okay, so I'll let this dry and I'll take the tape off and give you some close-ups of how it looks. Here's the finished dry sample. You can see, because I used a darker color, there is a little more variation, which is going to happen when you use darker colors because of the pigment. So the smooth, you see a little more of the variation of color, and the texture, you see a lot of texture and variation. And it would look really pretty if you did a finish coat, either a natural wax sealer or one of the synthetic sealers that they offer. The stencil technique is pretty cool, and I could see adding different colors like rust or something like that. Here's a few last pictures. You can especially see the variation in the ceiling because the way the light hits it. In person, it's a little more obvious, and it's just a beautiful finish. So I hope some of you guys give it a try. It's a wonderful plaster to work for. It's good for the earth, very natural. Low VOCs, beautiful, easy to touch up. I did want to touch on that fact that if you do get something on an unsealed line plaster, you can just sand it off. Thanks for watching another Paint and Create video. If you guys like this and enjoyed this type of content, please like and subscribe. I can't see who liked it, so I would love to see your comments. Please leave a comment if you like the content and what else you'd like to see.